and you put in an hour a day of reading the stuff that helps you be a better person and helps you better in your job, you're going to get better.
It is true. Like if you get too big, you make bad mistakes. I mean, there's just been colossal blunders from Target to Bud Light to all these guys that someone in a room of all these Ivy League people decided, you know what, I think it'd be a really good idea to take a beer and let's put a trans person on there to be the spokesperson. I go, man, that only cost you a couple $2 billion.
I heard somebody say, well, you know what the church needs is more business practices. And what I would say to that, no, they don't. There are more businesses that fail every year than there are churches. What churches need are good practices that work, okay? And businesses need that, and churches need that.
All right, welcome into the Kingdom Method. I'm Jeff Cox. This is Jimmie Dale. And our guest today is none other than Pastor Steve Stroope. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording that my first encounter with you was in 1990, which was 36 years ago. And I just can't believe how fast that the time has flown.
Yeah. You wake up every day and go to bed, it happens.
Yep.
For sure. I think as we get started, one of the things we want to talk about, we know you're an avid reader. We know you're really into books. And Jimmie and I read books. Now, I'm more of an audiobook guy than a book guy. I guess it's just my attention span. But tell us maybe the top 2 or 3 books that really spoke to you as a young leader, and then maybe the top 2 or 3 books that spoke to you as you progressed.
Yeah, I love reading. I think leaders are readers. And some people say, well, I just don't read very much. Well, it's because you haven't exercised that muscle. Just like if you want to run a marathon, you start walking every day, and then you start jogging, and then you start running, and you increase it. And everybody can be a reader, or they can listen to audiobooks. And they need that rhythm in their life. They need a space in their life. Every day I would read for 30 minutes at work. I used to feel guilty for reading at work, but I was reading about work. And it's okay. And then I would spend 30 minutes reading at home. I wouldn't allow myself to watch TV before I read 30 minutes. And you put in an hour a day of reading the stuff that helps you be a better person and helps you better in your job, you're going to get better. You're going to get better. So here's some books that I think are really good. One is for a young guy who's just coming out of college and he's trying to figure out, do I start my own business? Do I go work for someone else? There's a book called The Art of Work. I mean, it's like platinum. It's like gold. And it's not a real big book. So it's by a guy named Jeff Goins. And that's a great book for a starter book. And then I would say to young leaders, I would say, read anything by Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan was an executive coach. He's the guy that coined the term unique ability. And that is what God made us to do. And if we do find that, then we're energized every day in our work instead of being depleted. But he actually is not a writer. But he has a ghostwriter by the name of Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and they've written now 5 books together. And it's great stuff, whether you're working for someone or whether you supervise other people, but anything by Dan Sullivan. And then obviously everybody knows you want to read everything when you're a leader of people. You want to read everything by Patrick Lencioni.
Yes, sir.
I keep waiting for Patrick Lencioni to write a bad book. He has not done it yet, okay? But I have a man crush on Patrick Lencioni.
Yes.
And then the final thing I would say to young leaders is to read the E-Myth Revisited. When in the 1980s, and I was starting Lake Point Church, I read that book. It was called then The E-Myth. And it talked about the fact that as your organization grows, whether it's a nonprofit like I led for so many years, or if it's for-profit, you have to move from relationships where you're doing everything and your values are touching everything to learn to lead through other people and to create systems around your strengths. And I actually reread that book. It's now called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And I reread that book last week. And I just was amazed at the gold that is still in there. And if you're going to start a business, by the way, it is the #1 book to start a business because it talks about how McDonald's became so successful, how you could have people who were in their very first job working minimum wage and provide the same quality across the nation. And it's systems and it's training in those systems. And then it's accountability for those you've trained that they're actually following the systems. But that's what I'd say for young leaders. Real quick, for older guys, I would say the best book I've read in the last 5 years is From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. He's a professor at Harvard, happens to be a believer. and they're really mad at the fact that there's a standing room only in his classes and a long line to get into his classes. But he writes about the fact that when about the time you turn 30, you move from one strength to another strength. And it's really the strength of wisdom and about what you bring to the party. And you're not as good, not as sharp as you were in some things, but you're sharper in other things. And it's about how to shift your emphasis into your strengths. And then the last...
That was the one that one is the one you gave me that.
Yeah.
And that was one of mine for the old guys was the strength to strength.
That's in my queue. I haven't read it, so I'm excited now.
Oh,
it's in my queue.
Yeah. And I think once you get to the age of 40, 45, it's like a must read. It's one of those things that it just helps you because if you fight that first strength, it's just talking about this bell curve that happens to our lives. And if you fight that first strength and you don't get into the other wisdom strength, and one, that's a hard transition. And then two, it talks about if you don't, you'll just be miserable. Like you'll just remember when it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm back when I was awesome. But one of the things that I really laugh about, that I think it's the funniest thing about that book that just in my head, I went, you know, that's true because say if we all went to the Garth Brooks concert and we all be excited, like, hey, we're front row at Garth Brooks. And Garth gets up there and goes, hey guys, I wrote a new album. We'd be like, oh gosh, like we'd be like, oh, we want to hear the top 40. We want to hear all the stuff you did when you were in your 30s, at mid 30s, when he was really great. And then I started thinking, I go, man, how many artists wrote top 40 hits when they were past the age of 35 or 40? And I go, the only people I could think of was like country western guys. I go, I know Willie Nelson did. I know that Johnny Cash wrote a couple right before he passed that he wrote. But I was like, I don't know if there's any other ones.
Well, maybe their strength went from writing to finding people to write for them.
Yeah,
maybe that was the strength.
And it was about really talking about some of the guys that they basically were bringing the young people in and showing them the things that they had learned and helping them skip some steps, which is kind of what we're doing here. Yeah. And that's kind of a part of why I want to do this is because, we want to help people skip steps. And we're even getting to, and why we said the old guys too, because there's a lot of older guys that are watching this podcast that are like our age. And one of my friends is watching and he was like, man, it's so good to feel people are in the same place I am. I feel like I'm at this business and I'm all alone. And I'm the only one dealing with these problems and issues and the things we talk about. They're like, hey, I'm the only person that deals with it. And you realize, no, we all deal with it. And it's really interesting if you go look at small businesses, especially family run, how many people are in the family are there, how many people they have that are just long-term employees that do nothing. Right. There's all these commonalities that happen that are really interesting. And I think but I will say that book that Pastor Steve gave me, that was probably been one of the most influential books. You had another one that you're about to talk about too.
There's a great book by Rory Vaden called Procrastinate on Purpose. Mm-hmm. The title is terrible. But the book, it really is. It has nothing to do with the book. I don't know. In fact, I've heard him speak in person, and he said, my publishers made me choose that title. But in that book, he talks about how, and this is so good for older leaders, it talks about how you do more, you work smarter instead of harder. And real quick, he talks about time management is investing your time today in things that will make you time later. And he says, first of all, you eliminate the things that if you stop doing, nobody would care. Then the second thing he says is you automate. You use software and everything on the repetitive tasks to hand off to someone else. And then what you can't eliminate or automate, you delegate. And he talks about the process, the healthy process of delegating to others and why it comes back to us if we don't go through that process. And then he says, if you do those first three, eliminate, automate, and delegate, then you can concentrate on the 20% that's producing 80% of your results.
Well, I think something you just said really struck me because you talked about, hey, this is maybe for new young leaders and this is for older leaders, but you go back and revisit books and you can still get more out of it than you did the first time. So
and you find new things in it because you're at a new stage. To your point, Jimmie Dale, you're at a new stage with new needs, and you read over that chapter last time, and it didn't mean anything to you because you didn't need it back then, and you need it today.
Yeah. And listen, most people know you for Lake Point Church, right? You started the church, And we'd like for you to tell your story about how that kind of got started.
Don't be getting off now. We got to hear your book.
Oh,
what about
my
your
books?
books? Don't
Give me some books,
be
Jeff.
moving. Don't be moving too fast now.
Oh, my bad, man. I'm ready to get into the story, man. I think for me right now, two books that I've read most recently is Own Your Past, Change Your Future, and it's with it's the guy from Dave Ramsey. I forget his name.
Love the title.
John. What is his name? I don't remember his name.
They can look it up. They can look up the title.
My wife's going to kill me because it's one of her favorite guys. But it's Own Your Past, Change Your Future, and it walks you through dealing with all of that stuff that you're carrying with you from childhood, from all that stuff. And it's been a very effective book. And matter of fact, I've led teams through that book. Not necessarily business wise, but personal wise. And then Emotional Intelligence 2.0.
I
love that book.
Yes, I went through that one most recently. And I've actually done trainings to my leadership team from that book at Berkey's. And it's been one of the most impactful trainings that we've had. So those are my two books most recently.
Super.
I think what you said there was something that was important about you doing trainings with the books.
Yes.
I think that's what people miss. We used to do like a book study, and then we go, okay, so let's read a chapter, 2 chapters, and meet every week and kind of do a little book club within your management team.
Yeah.
And then kind of go, hey, so is there anything in that book that we could like incorporate into Baker Brothers? Like, what were your favorite takeaways, the things you thought were great? What were things you disagreed with? And then we're like, hey, how can we implement this in the Baker Brothers? And we did that with one of my favorite ones was the 1 Minute Manager, which is the old one. But that one is it's so good because it's like almost like a parable. He's doing it the whole time. We're like kind of going, the visitor comes in and he has to repeat himself and you kind of feel like he's kind of being a jerk, but then the dude will never ask, like he'll listen and not ask him to repeat himself. But he used the methodology in it. And I think one of the things that was the big one, because, we were coming in from the baby boomer generation into the Gen X to the millennial. And what it talked about was that one about the pigeon, where there's a pigeon in a maze. And what you do is they did a study to go, okay, so if I put the reward in front of the pigeon, I can get him to move to the reward. And then I can move him to the next reward. And then I can move him around the corner. And it would get the pigeon all the way through the maze by these little rewards that just happened over time. And then they said, well, here's what we do sometimes to manage it. We put the cage in there and we electrify it. And we pop the pigeon, and the pigeon gets, the pigeon gets negative reinforcement. Bam, bam, bam. Then the pigeon just sits there and is completely still scared to move. Which that's what we do to our employees. That was so relevant to me because we're in the time. If you were in plumbing back and became an apprentice, slaves got treated better in like ancient times than these guys got treated. I mean, it was like you got yelled at every day, the whole thing. So what happens is that pop made you scared to go do anything on your own. You would literally wait for them to go, what tool do they need? What part do they need? If you ain't got the part ahead of time, they may go, what are you doing?
Well, and Ken Blanchard obviously wrote that book, and everything he wrote, again, is good too. He wrote a one later on called The 1 Minute Manager Builds Highly Effective Teams.
Oh, yeah?
And in that, he talks about how you move somebody from directing to just coaching them to delegating them. The process, he calls it situational leadership, and you got to move an employee from one level to another where then all of a sudden he's autonomous and he's taking an initiative on himself. But gosh, he's a great author.
Guys that have like home service businesses and any kind of business where you serve the public, and I even say B2B, but B2C for sure. The Raving Fans book that Ken Blanchard.
That's a big
that
one.
is.
I reread that 3 weeks ago.
Did you?
And it's about 25 years in between the readings, but it was just as good.
Oh my gosh. It is like something that just got my brain. There's certain, even speakers that used to speak. I remember this one guy spoke at Starbucks, never did anything the guy said, but man, his stories would get my brain firing. And the Raving Fans deal was one of those that got your brain firing going, could we do that? Because it's ridiculous service things that they do. That you're like, there's no way we could do that. We can't do that
as a theme at Baker Brothers. It was our theme for the quarter was making raving fans. Yeah.
Well, in that book, he talks about if you want to over deliver and have raving fans, the first thing you do is you daydream with your team. What would a perfect company be like? And obviously you can't do all the things because you can't afford them and some of them are not sustainable, but you dream about it. And then you go from dream to discover, and discover is where you ask your customers what's important to them. And then you fine tune your dream, and you also fine tune it to what's realistic and sustainable. And then you do it. You begin to do it, and as you do it, you learn things that you do it. But then you repeat that process. You dream, you discover, and then you actually deliver. Is the word, is deliver. And it's a great process of doing that. And you're right. In that book, he's got so many great stories, like Ritz-Carlton, that gave all of their employees, including the maids, $500 a year to solve problems. And what they were doing is they were empowering the frontline people to take action to over-deliver. And this one guy left his computer in his hotel room and had to have it for a presentation the next day. And rather than putting it in the mail and hoping it got there, the maid bought a plane ticket, flew to where the guy was having the conference, and handed him his computer. And she had the authority to do that.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a cool story.
Yeah.
We had one something you said too about the perfect experience, that was a funny thing we did. I don't remember if you were there at Baker Brothers and we did that. We said, hey, I want you to write a story.
Perfect day.
And write down, and this is probably worth price of admission today. Have your guys do this. Go write your perfect day. What does your perfect day look like? And then what I want y'all to do is I want y'all to share that with your team. And then I want y'all to get them to write their perfect day. And then what we can do is find these correlations between how we make each other's day better. And what was funny is I remember Kim Hernandez, our CFO, she was like, I wrote that and gave it to the team to read. And one of the girls didn't realize that her doing her job exceptionally made her day better.
Yeah.
And she goes, man, she just came to work a whole nother way because the purpose wasn't from just clocking in and get my paycheck. The purpose was, man, I'm improving my boss's life. Like, this makes my boss happy. And so it was really cool. And there was a lot of times the other way where we were reading things and go, man, that's a little thing to do. Like, for our employee to do that for them and it makes their day perfect. Are you kidding? Let's do that. So that was another one. We were talking earlier about reading, and Jeff was doing audio. I can't do audio because my ADHD goes the other way. You know how when you drive and you don't know how you got to work, like you just I literally went autopilot and I have no idea. That's what happened. That book will be going and I'll just go autopilot and I don't even understand what happened. But I don't read as consistently as I need to. And I get these weird spurts. If I start reading, then I'll read 7 books in just a couple months. And then I won't do anything for 6 months. It's really weird.
Well, and that's why I think you need a rhythm of reading. And that's why I do 30 minutes at work, 30 minutes at home. And then I also read when I fly somewhere. So I can read half of a book on the way to Florida and the other half of the book on the way back.
Yeah.
When they put Wi-Fi on the plane, it almost messed that up. But then I made the same rule at home. I got to read 30 minutes before I can get on Wi-Fi. And then I would never get out of the book. And so I was you can knock out some good books. The other thing I think that is healthy is for you to have a shelf of books. You talk about it in the queue, books that you're about to read. And I like to go once a month and move those books around because I need balance. If left to myself, I'd read all the same kind of books. I need books on marriage. I need books on management. I need books on leadership. I need theology books. I need books on personal development and self-leadership. And so I'll move those around so I'm getting protein and vegetables and enough dessert.
Balanced diet.
Yeah. And then it's right there. And I've always got 2 books in my satchel because if I get on a plane, if I get a stinker, I want to be able to throw it in the trash and read the other one. And then I've always got 2 books sitting by that chair that I read 30 minutes. And I've always got 2 books in a queue at the office where I prop up my feet and read for 30 minutes. And so you got everything ready and it's more likely and you got a rhythm and you don't have to make that choice.
Well, being intentional is what we're talking about. It's like
exactly.
I used to listen to books on my drive. Now I drive 2 minutes to the shop.
Yeah,
and
it's
2 minutes home.
It'll
takes a minute.
So I do it. I listen to the audiobooks when I take walks. And it really sort of I'm capturing 2 things.
I think that would be better for me because if I did that, I would probably actually listen, when I was walking. But driving for some reason, especially in the morning, and you're done with work and you're kind of tired. But there's a couple books that I wanted to talk about. One that's interesting is Outliers. I don't know why I love that book. I don't know that I got anything out of it besides to go. I don't know that I could go, okay, yeah, here's the things I did after I read Outliers, but it was just super interesting. It was just about these things that happen that, create, like it talked about how old kids are that are in pro athletes, that most of them are in the later part, like they're in the early parts of the year and the later ones in the summer. Yeah, because when they get in high school and stuff, they're behind everybody else by 6 months. I mean, just kind of kooky stuff, but it was stuff about business and things that are really, they're observations of a kind of a study and observation. But the other one is Halftime for the older guys.
Love it.
Is the Halftime book. And there is a chapter in there just warning to everyone that if you will physically cry. I don't know. Oh my gosh. I don't know that I've ever read a book and teared up and had to like walk away and then come back and read the rest. But it is just what happened to transform him was so just in a way terrible, but just what happened afterwards was great. Yep. And it's just talking about, being relevant in the second, go from, what is it? Success to relevance, I think.
I think it's from success to significance.
Significance, That's what it was. That's
Bob
what it was.
Buford is in heaven now.
Oh, really?
Died about 4 or 5 years ago, but what a great guy. Impacted so many leaders to say, okay, how do I do the second half of life? It's funny, he talked about the second half. I'm now talking about the fourth quarter in my life.
That's a good point. One thing
we can go in overtime. You never know, triple overtime. You don't know.
Come on, put me in, coach.
One thing I don't want to let go is you have a stinker of books on a list. I need to get that for you before you leave today, so I don't waste time.
We can put it on the notes. We can put it on the notes of the podcast.
Avoid these books.
Yeah, these are bad ones.
No, but the thing that I like is that when you're talking about whether you're running a business or it's self-help or it's church leadership or any of that stuff, every time that you pick it up, something else speaks to you. But the other thing is, how many times do you pass books on to people? Like, that's a big thing that Bubba has taught me is, hey, pass these books on, hand them off. And I'm imagining he got that from you.
Well, I had a closet in my office for 40 years at Lake Point, and it was the books that most impacted my life. And what I would do is I'd buy a dozen of them. Mm-hmm. And then whenever I went to meet with a volunteer or meet with a staff member or meet with a close friend or something, I would say, okay, what book in this stage of life? Like I had a book in there called Extreme Grandparenting by Tim Kimmel. And I read, when I became a grandparent, I read 5 really stinkers, really bad books. But this one book was great. So if I knew somebody who was a volunteer at Lake Point had just become a grandparent, I would grab Extreme Grandparenting. And it wasn't the price of, the $21 that the book cost that I gave a guy. Mm-hmm. I gave the guy not reading those other 5 books that I threw away, and I enriched his life. And so it's a great way to enrich other people's lives.
Yes, sir.
And I've got about 7 or 8 people that I respect who kind of think like I think, and I'm always asking them, what are you reading? Because I don't want to waste time reading a bad book. And so I go with recommendations of people I know who know me, who will make those recommendations. I also look on the back of books when I go to Barnes & Nobles or I go on Amazon online or something. I look at who has endorsed the book. And if you've got somebody like Jim Collins or Seth Godin or Patrick Lencioni again, who are recommending a book, and that's packed out in the back, I'm getting that book. And so,
Jim Collins. I think and Pastor Steve always, if I meet with him, I feel like I get a book almost every time.
Awesome.
And one of the things I think he asked me, I was talking to him about Good to Great or something by Jim Collins, and I think I want to say he either recommended or gave me the book How the Mighty Fall.
Yes.
And I think that was probably better to me than Good to Great, which everybody's a Good to Great fan, but How the Mighty Fall, because what happened was a lot of those companies failed later on failed, and he kind of got some shade for it, and so he wanted to kind of go in and go, why'd they fail? But there were like 6 steps. There were 6 steps, and if you got to, I think, step 4, it was too late for you and you were done. And so I want to say what's important about that. If you're in a growing environment, you have a growing business, I mean, we want to focus on what to do, but you need to know what not to do. You need to know, like, let's not make the mistakes that these other people made. And I think that was what's really great about that book is it got way less pub and way less people reading it. But what was great about it is it systematically took you through what made these companies fail. And then that gives you that thing in your head going, okay, let's watch out for humorists. Like, let's watch out for we're too big to fail, because that's where a lot of people get. And now they're in home services. There are so many big, huge companies. And I think Mark Cuban's the one that said, hey, fat pigs get slaughtered. And he was talking about the NFL.
Yeah.
He was talking about the NFL, but it is true. Like, if you get too big, you make bad mistakes. I mean, there's just been colossal blunders from Target to Bud Light to all these guys that someone in a room of all these Ivy League people decided, you know what, I think it'd be a really good idea to take a beer that a bunch of freaking tradespeople drink and blue collar guys and dudes that are motorcycle gang, and let's put a trans person on there to be the spokesperson. I go, man, that only cost you a couple $1 billion. Like, I'm sure that wasn't a big mess, but that's what happens is you get so big and you get so great, or what I call drinking your own Kool-Aid as a company.
It's ego. Yeah.
Yeah. Your ego gets so big that all of a sudden, you know, you are right at the cusp of failure in a massive way. And it could be one decision like that, just one little decision like that creates it.
But that's why you guys have done so well, is because you never stop learning. Because there's a new set of skills and there are pitfalls you need to avoid in every season of life. And if you're not reading, if you're not benchmarking with other companies, if you're not hanging around leaders, one of my mentors said to me, he said, if you want to be a better leader, he said, number one, read everything you can get your hands on leadership. Number two, hang around leaders who are greater than you. And number three, lead something.
Wow. Yeah, you got to put it into practice, right?
Yeah,
you can't just read about it.
Exactly.
Well, we better get to his story.
Yeah, and because I fumbled it earlier, I had to look it up. It's John Deloney, Own Your Past, Change Your Future. So
Good.
that's that book, just so we can make it right.
So your wife doesn't beat you when you get home? That's all you're trying to do?
That's my favorite guy.
Hey, that's the good thing is my wife always keeps me from getting too prideful. I'll tell you that. Like, she'll tell me pretty quick, like, hey, you're not that cool. You're not that awesome.
and we need people in our life who love us enough to be rude to us.
That's true. Yeah,
we do.
And so before I was talking about Lake Point Church, and we know your story, but I'd like for you to share sort of the journey that you went on with Lake Point Church, not just, hey, we started in a bait shop and all of that. That's great. But about what you went through in those phases as you went.
Yeah, not everybody knows about the bait shop. We
can tell it. Yeah,
I will give the Reader's Digest version because I really do want us to spend most of our time giving things that would be helpful to our listeners. But Lake Point got started in June of 1979, and when I got there was about 57 people. They called me as their first pastor. I started in February of 1980. And we just grew slow, which gave me time to develop in my leadership and skill. I liken it to the metaphor of an oak tree. An oak tree is going to last a lot longer because it grows slow. And during that time, we hit about 500 and everything. And I realized that there were some skills that were needed that I didn't have. I heard somebody say, well, you know what the church needs is more business practices. And what I would say to that, no, they don't. There are more businesses that fail every year than there are churches. What churches need are good practices that work, okay? And businesses need that, and churches need that. And sometimes people criticize the church as it gets larger, that it's getting too corporate. It's not about being corporate. It's about being a good steward of that phase of either your company or your nonprofit. And you have to move from, again, relationships and you touching everything to touching everything through people. Josh Howerton once said, I used to have to make good decisions. Now what I have to do is hire people who make good decisions. And that's that transition. And so we grew over 40 years. When I retired or transitioned out of that job in 2020, I timed it exactly right. In March of 2020, I actually handed off the baton. That's when COVID started. So I planned all that.
That's when I started at Berkey. So we're similar there. It was like, oh, okay.
So, but that was, 40 years from when we started. And so we went from 57 people meeting in the bait house to an average attendance in the auditorium of about 12,000, plus kids in the nursery, about 15,000, with eight English-speaking campuses and 3 Hispanic campuses, and about 250 full-time employees, and a budget of about $38 million. Now, Here's what I learned is that when you're small, you have to work on excellence and resources. When you're big, you have to pay attention to staying intimate and finding a way to touch and empower people and to love on people. And so big is not bad. Bad is bad. I know a lot of small churches that are bad. I know a lot of good big churches. So the size is just the environment in which you do what God has called you to do. In 40 years, we never set an attendance goal because our goal was not to be a big church. Our goal was to reach people for Jesus Christ and to help them have a life that was being led by Christ, become more like him. And we just did it different when we were in the Bait House than when we were in the big house. Yeah. Okay. and it's the same work, but we had to use different tools. And then when I handed off the baton, I became the leader of an organization that we started while I was at Lake Point called Strategic Launch Network, to plant churches in places where there are not a lot of good, healthy churches like Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver. And I led that for 4 years. And then I just recently handed that off to a guy named Jason Williams, who's doing a great job. And I'm in full-time consulting to both for-profit companies as well as nonprofit. But Strategic Launch, I get to still stay on the board of that organization and influence that, and I do some pro bono work for them. But we've had the privilege of planting 90 churches in all of those cities that I've talked about, under-resourced major cities, that's been a joy. We're now planting about 12 churches a year, and so we've got a really good pace of that. We have a $5 million budget for that. Most of that is direct support for those young men that are planting those churches. So that's been kind of my journey. I'm spending most of my time now, coaching, being an executive coach, coaching companies, coaching churches. I did find out that companies pay better than churches do.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I think, something in your story too that's really cool is when you talk about, then I handed the baton off and then I hand the baton off. But what just kind of speaks to your leadership and mentorship of those leaders is that when you do, the baton doesn't get dropped. The baton, they do better. They keep going and
that's
keep
a
the
reflection
growth
on you.
Yeah.
You want them to do better.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I left Baker Brothers and Bubba took over, I mean, there are people like, oh gosh, it's going to collapse and fold up.
Not if you're a
and
good leader.
We built the oak. We built the slow, we built something that is not going to go away because one person, and my dad used to always say that, he goes, man, here's the thing. If one of us in any way, any people that work here leave, the company needs to be okay. Like whether it's me or you or it's the salesperson over here or this great plumber, if they leave, we need that the company doesn't be hinged on one person. That's a really bad thing. And that's something that's gonna be auto, something happens. I mean, God forbid somebody gets in a car accident or whatever, and then it's just company's closed, because this guy's not there. But if you do things the right way with intention, be intentional about mentorships and things and picture it. What if I'm not here? Do all these families go broke and have to get another job and starve because I'm not here?
Yeah, and people describe what you're talking about, the opposite of it, as one genius with 1,000 minions.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And it makes you feel good, but it is stupid. It really is a bad move.
Yeah. It's
for
not so
everybody.
genius, not so genius. Then I go.
No, a so-called genius.
The question I have is so you obviously had to select the person you're going to pass the baton. And we just did an episode about succession planning and mentorship. Were there times where you thought you may have had somebody and you're and then, that didn't work out, and then Josh came along and you think he's the right one?
Yeah, my board, basically, I told them when I was turned 60 that around 67 I would probably make that change because it allowed me to get more into my unique ability in that second half of life where I sit in the wisdom chair rather than the doing chair. And it's better for the church, for the next generation, new energy, a different style of preaching and everything else. So at age 60, I said, guys, we got 7 years to do this. And the longer runway you have, I do a lot of coaching right now, both in the corporate area as well as in churches, about handing off that baton. And the longer runway you have, the more options you have. And so to your question about did I think I had somebody and we didn't, we decided that we would, it's always better to hire from within if you can. And so we decided we would bring in teaching pastors because obviously teaching is a real important part of the job that I was handing off, and that we would give them leadership opportunities and see if they had the leadership chops, because it really is as much about leadership. You know, the people sitting out there in the auditorium, all they care about is if the sermon is bad or not, okay? What they don't understand is that's half of the job.
Yeah.
And because you got to manage people and budgets and personnel and everything else. And so we would bring people in, and we found out they couldn't lead. They were great. We knew they were great teachers, or we
Good
wouldn't have brought them.
Good teachers.
Yeah. But they were pretty much, one-hit wonder. And they couldn't lead themselves out of a paper bag. Some of them couldn't even spell leadership, okay? And so one day, one of our board members said, well, I guess our strategy's not working. And another board member said, no, actually, it's working pretty good, because we've discovered some of these guys, we would have hired them off the street based only on their preaching. And by the way, that's the way most churches do it.
Yep.
And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about hiring here in a little bit. But what happens is a lot of people, the best thing they do is interview for jobs. They have no other skill set.
Wow.
Okay.
We have experienced that.
I always say that. Hey, if somebody's too good, they could be too good at this.
They're socializers. They make a great friend, and you love them, and you want to go out to eat with them afterwards. But they don't have the skill set that matches the job.
We used to laugh about guys that did too. I would be in there talking to a guy, especially technicians, and when they were really dynamic, like really good, and I'd be like, okay, so you're this good of a personality, communicator, everything else. To go, man, something's wrong. I go, okay, so we do a background check and a drug test, right? And then I go, that's going to be like today. And usually that ended the interview because guys that were having problems with drugs were really good at pivoting. They had some mental agility.
Well, I think what you said there is key, is like understanding, okay, it's okay that we admit that, hey, we thought this was the guy, but it's not the guy.
Yeah.
And let's go get the right one.
Yeah. And what we had to do is we had, at about 6 years into that 7-year search, we said, okay, we've tried hiring from within and developing from within. For whatever reason, the unique skill sets we have, we've not been able to discover this. So we're going to go out and find somebody who has done it, who's grown a thing. And by the way, I don't ever want to put all my eggs in one basket. While we were trying to find an internal candidate, I was looking for 7 years. And I found a guy by the name of Josh, and he was actually in a cohort that I was leading. I would go and do a cohort with young leaders, and we would meet a couple times a year for 3 years. And at the end of that cohort, I said to Josh, I said, hey, really enjoyed being the cohort, leading you in that cohort. Would you mind if I coached you if I didn't charge you anything? He said, you'd coach me for free? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. What he didn't know is a 3-year job interview.
There you go.
So I had him in a cohort for 3 years, and then I coached him for 3. I was on the phone with him for an hour for 3 years.
Wow.
And I was really interviewing, looking at all of his skill sets and what did he do? Was he a learner? Was he humble? When I look at hiring anybody, I look for what everybody pretty much knows, which is the 3 C's. And the 3 C stands for character. And you don't really know anybody's character unless you spend a lot of time with them. And so that's why it's always good to hire from within, because you know their character.
Yes, sir.
The second thing is competency. And what I've learned about competency is people are not good at what they say they're good at. They're good at what they're good at.
Yeah.
And so all you can do is look at—
Can you say that again, please?
Well, seriously, they're not good at what they say they're good at. They're good at what they're good at. So your interview is fairly worthless when you say, are you strong at this? And oh, yeah, I'm great at that. Well, basically what we tell them is what we're looking for. And then we say, now tell me about yourself. And they repeat back to us what we just said. And we go, oh my goodness, this is a miracle.
This is the guy.
And so what I want to do is I want to look at, even if the job that they're interviewing for is different than the job they've done, I want to see what they did in the last job they were in. And I really want to dig deep there and not take their word for what that went, but take the people who had to supervise them or work with them. So that's about competency. And the last thing is chemistry. So I want character. I want competency at what I'm hiring them for, and then I want chemistry. Chemistry is I enjoy working with them. You can't supervise somebody if you don't want to go out to lunch with them. Okay, you keep canceling all the meetings with them because they talk too much, or they don't talk at all, or whatever it is. Chemistry doesn't mean, by the way, that they're like you. They're probably not. My wife and I have been married for 54 years. And she is the opposite personality, but we have chemistry, and I've got 2 kids to prove that, okay? Chemistry is you enjoy being around them. And when they walk into the room, are you energized?
Yeah.
Or when they come in, is it suck the life out of you when they come in?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for those 3 C's. And then thanks to Patrick Lencioni, I'm looking for 3 H's now as well for the last 15 years. And his 3 H's are humility. And I define humility as somebody who's willing for somebody else on the team to have a better idea than them, and somebody who's willing for other team members to get credit for something.
Yep.
Then second of all, he says they have to be hardworking. Now, I know enough about the businesses that you guys have led to know that you ask people to work hard, and you worked hard.
Yep.
And we had that same kind of culture. And I just said to people, we give you time to be with your family. We give you time to develop your relationship with God. But when we're here, we actually work. People who come to work for a church think we sing all day long and we have devotionals. do that at home, because we're giving you a paycheck to fix these problems and help these people. And so we always ask people to self-eliminate themselves. The number one comment I got after the 90-day review from people is, I can't believe how hard everybody works around here. We had that. It was that obvious. And I said to people, if you're not a hard worker, that doesn't make you a bad person, but you can't work at Lake Point. And just
can't work here.
Go ahead and self-eliminate yourself, because you're going to be carrying a cardboard box out of here in 90 days, because we'll know in 90 days. So just save yourself the problem.
And that's okay, right?
And that's okay.
Yeah.
So they have to be humble. They have to be hardworking. And then, in that book, as you know, because you guys have read it, he says you have to be smart. And then he explains that what he means by smart is not intellectually smart, but emotionally smart, emotional intelligence 2.0. And I love Patrick Lencioni, but why didn't he put another H there? Why didn't he call it high emotional intelligence?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And so I'm looking, and that is
Patrick, you're watching this.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I really am. I really am.
3 H's, Patrick.
The high emotional intelligence. Here's the cool thing. High emotional intelligence is a skill. You can get better at it. You won't be perfect, but you can get better at it. And the way you get better at high emotional intelligence is you find somebody on your team who has high emotional intelligence, and you ask them to mentor you. You say, if I say or do something and I offend somebody unknowingly, you're going to pick up on it because you're in touch with that kind of thing. I give you permission to come to me privately. The great thing about being coached by someone with high emotional intelligence is they do it with high emotional intelligence, okay? They're not going to confront you in public or do that. Yeah. You know you've chosen the wrong person if they call you out in front of the team. But high emotional intelligence, I defined as you have enough self-awareness to know how your words and your deeds impact others. It's a skill. Yes, hardworking is a choice. You either choose to work at Lake Point and work hard, or you choose to work somewhere else. Humility. How do you get more humility? Now, watch out. I'm a pastor. I'm going to get spiritual here. I don't know how you get more humble. And humility is not thinking that you're not good at anything. That's a bad self-image. Mm-hmm. Humility is, I think you get it from realizing what Jesus Christ did on the cross to pay for you. Your value, what's land worth? What anybody's willing to pay for it. What's a person worth? What God was willing to pay for us. And then when you think about you're created by the most creative being in the universe, I can just be me, and I can be comfortable in that. I don't have to name drop. I don't have to tell you all the things. I don't have to show you all my trophies, because I'm comfortable with who I am because of what Jesus did on the cross for me and who God made me to be. I make a terrible somebody else, but I make a really good me.
And I think people forget that. Like I tell people all the time, I go, man, God made you that way. And I remember my daughter when, she has ADHD, actually worse than I do, which is weird. But
we know who she got it from.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
It's not Belinda. It's like me. It was for sure me. But I remember sitting in the counselor's office and her like talking to the high school counselor when we kind of realized, and she kept talking about, it is a deficiency, because it's not great in the school setting. It's not fun to have ADHD and try to get through school. So it's like, oh yeah, you have this problem, you have this issue. And I mean, she'd start tearing up and getting upset. And then I told her, I was like, hey, look, God made you this way.
Exactly.
Like, it's a gift. it's not a curse. It's not a disability. You know, that word got used a lot. And she just like was leaving this thing, you know, just really tormented. And I go, look, no, God gave you this gift.
So good.
It's your job to use it. But people sometimes the way they grew up, and I mean, did that just happen by happenstance? No, you probably grew up with your dad and your mom and whatever happened for a reason. And I said, and some of the people that had some of the worst ways they grew up had some of the best testimonies that impacted. We used to do this prison ministry.
Exercise certain muscles to respond to that.
Yeah, because the guys that we're talking to did not have good home lives, did not have good lives in general, and they're in a place they don't want to be. But these guys, of course, related more to the guy who had a like kind story. And it's like, hey, be who you are. Stop trying to be someone. I think that's a great
Be
thing.
your best self.
Yes. Like just, you know, lean into who you are. You like my son, he's really quiet and does all this stuff. But I go, dude, he's great. And anybody's around him go, man, he's awesome. I said, but he's not like me and real verbal. But it's like, I used to tell my daughter that. I was literally talking to them out there because they're like, hey, she goes, I don't think my brother likes me. And I said, honey, it's different. He's just different. I go, if you go take him to a Marvel movie and go eat some ribs beforehand, I go, and just sit there and just be, he enjoys himself immensely. I go, but if you're going to like talk at him 500, miles an hour, that's not going to work. But something the pastor said that I think is really impactful is I think when you're hiring people, I stay in the resume. I hang out in the resume. I hang out because they'll tell you everything. Like you said, if you ask them, what are you good at? They're going to tell you something, that they think appeases you. But if you go, hey, let's talk about your resume. What happened here? How was that work? What was it like working there? And if somebody has an authority problem or is not humble, you're going to find out really quick because they didn't praise me enough or didn't do whatever. But you'll find out like you're asking them to tell a story about themselves. And so what I used to always look at too is if someone had been somewhere for 10 years, you're like, okay, this dude's probably going to be an auto hire. We're probably going to hire this guy because he stayed somewhere for 10 years. There'd have to be something just really wrong here for me not to grab this guy up. So I think that's what I always did was stay in the resume. Another hint, like when you're interviewing people, is a big one, is to understand that they're really nervous, that they're over there and they're like, they're not interviewing very well. Like I remember I had somebody just come over to the new company I'm at now that had not had an interview in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, yeah, we know that you're recommending her, but we don't know because of this interview. And I go, well, I know she's not good at it because she hasn't done one in 20 years, guys. But it's our job as the interviewer to look and understand that, hey, they're fidgeting, they're sweating, you can tell they're uncomfortable. And a lot of a way that we always use, I think Bubba was really good at this, he'd always go, hey, what do you do? So what do you do for fun? So we kind of stop talking about the interview and we start going, what do you do? What do you like to do? And they talk about
the flow going.
Yeah, I love to go mud in my pickup truck. Oh, well, man, where do you go? And then you just start. And then what happens is
they ease up.
That relaxes them to be able to actually carry on an interview. So I was telling my daughter she's still dating and she's on her first date. The guy didn't do well. I go, nobody does good on their first date. I guess it's like no one gets married off their first date ever in the history of the world. So I said, give the dude another try, at least talk to him again or whatever, because he probably was really nervous and maybe he talked too much. Maybe he didn't talk enough, like what Steve said. But I think that's Well,
my question about that, what you shared was, did you find that in all the experience that you've had, that humility was the one that was the hardest to find?
Patrick Lencioni in the back of his book, which everybody doesn't read the appendix, read the appendix and that ideal team member, because he gives you questions to ask to determine whether it's which of the three H's. And at some point you just say to them, you explain the three H's and you say, which one, this makes them more comfortable to Jimmie Dale's point, which one do you excel at? And they'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. And then you say, which one would you maybe need to give a little more attention to? You don't get them to tell them it's bad at it. And they'll tell you, and usually they're pretty accurate at that. And it's not, I would not say that there's an abundance of any one of those H's. It's different for everybody. And the hardest thing, though, to get a good, accurate answer is most people think humility is I can't say anything good about myself. Mm-hmm. That's not what humility is. Humility is respecting other people's strengths and not thinking you're better at everybody, at everything. And so, which one are you strong at? Well, I'm pretty humble. It sounds bad. You know what I'm saying?
It does sound bad.
But are you bragging about being humble?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Humble brag.
But what you do is you define humility in a different way, and then you ask them what they have less trouble with or seems to be natural to them, and then what might they give a little more attention. The other thing I found out that's great in hiring is use the tools, and I know you guys have used Culture Index. In fact, you used it and discovered it before I did, but I used it for, the last 18 years at Lake Point. And it's such a great tool. There are people, it's a personality profile, and there's so many that are out there, but most people use like Myers-Briggs, or they'll use DISC, D-I-S-C. Those things were invented in the 1950s. What tool are you using today that hasn't been improved on since the 1950s?
Maybe this cup.
Well, exactly. And so it's great, and we don't have time to get into it, but I like to use that tool, and then I'd also like to use the Gallup tool called Strength Finders, where it talks about 34 strengths that a person has, and it chooses their top 5 strengths. And this is interesting. There's only 4 people in the continental United States who have your same top 5 strengths. That's how uniquely we're made by God. And the reason I use both Culture Index and Strength Finders is they measure different things. Mm-hmm. Strength Finders is going to measure whether you're fast or slow, whether you're more task-oriented or people-oriented. It's going to measure how much patience you have, or how much impatience, which is good if you're a leader to have. Whereas Strength Finders are going to talk about in what areas that personality is expressed. I want to lay those over each other. And then I read a great book about interviewing by Lazo Bach, B-O-C-K, called Work Rules. And in that, he talks about how bad we are at hiring. And we are. Hiring to a large extent, even with all these hacks, is a crapshoot, okay?
Yep.
But he says that if you'll find a small team, and when you're interviewing somebody, if you'll then have that team interview them as well. And here's the secret sauce. On that team, you have somebody on your team who has a track record of hiring people well. It's a skill set. You have somebody from HR, so we don't give them a verbal promises that are not in the letter of offer letter. Yeah. And then you have somebody in there who has some kind of background of skill in the area where you're hiring, even if they're not supervising them. So you got a supervisor interviewing, and then you have these 3 people interviewing them. Now here's the real secret, though. You don't have those people after the interview talk to each other. You have them fill out a form that rates this person and gives a score, and then and only then they share the score with each other and discuss, because you have groupthink.
Influencing each other.
Whoever's the loudest person in the room is going to determine that, and they may be the very person who sucks at hiring people.
Yeah.
And so it's that, but there's more to it than that. But that's the heart of that book.
Was the Gallup Strength Finder? Is that the one that had like around like?
No, that's DISC.
But I think it was Strength Finder that
leading from your strengths, or
was that leading from your strengths?
That was leading from your strengths, which is confusing. And leading from your strengths is a form of DISC.
Okay.
Which is the same thing as Culture Index, and Culture Index is better. Leading from your strength has stuff like, it tells you your top strength is, say you're a maximizer, or you're strategic, or your harmony, or your contextualization, ideation. So it's going to talk. It's got hard strengths in it. Yeah. Doing strengths, and then it's got thinking strengths. Yeah,
because I remember it had like strengths. Hey, you're people oriented, you're task oriented, you're a slow thinker. You're
that's
fast.
DISC.
Yeah,
so, merged.
But it must be merged. I think it's the culmination of both.
Yeah.
Because what I loved is I love the communication in the back of the report, because I think when Bubba came to us, y'all were using that at the church.
We were using the DISC. Yeah,
and then we got
leading from your
strengths.
That's why we confused the two.
But it was the back part was great. I loved what I loved about it was like how to communicate with Steve, how not to communicate with Steve. And that was where I remember reading that.
There were some insights there.
I found some stuff with me that I didn't know why it happened, didn't even realize it happened until I read it. And I was like, okay, you do that. It said, hey, do not come to Jimmie and want him to make a decision like right now. without all the data.
All the data, guys. I live this. It's all the data.
It's all the data. Because I go, do you know about this? And they go, no. Do you know about this? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, and I automatically got really angry, which didn't help anything. Like that helped nothing. And so then I'd be like going, well, you want me to make a decision right now without all this information? I mean, how would I do that? Like that I get verbally abusive, I think. And then I eventually go, and then what I did is I go, okay, I realized it was happening. So as they were telling me they didn't have it, then I go, okay, here's what you need to do. I didn't get mad anymore. And I go, what you need to do is you need to go out and find these things out. And as soon as you bring those back to me, then I can make a decision. But I can't make a decision off of what you have.
Well, and what these personnel profiles, strength finders, leading from your strengths, Culture Index does is it helps us appreciate the fact that different people process things at different speeds in different ways. And they're not wrong. They're just different.
Yep.
And we don't have to agree with the way they do it, but we have to be aware of the way they do it if we're going to manage those people. And so if you don't have a system for hiring, in other words, these are the tools that we use, and you got to limit them. That's why I only do strength finders and culture indexes. They're doing different things. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to start there. And the great thing about, as you guys know, Culture Index is you buy the license, so you can give 1,000. It costs you the same amount as if you give 10. And so I start the interview process with a profile.
Yep.
And say, okay, this is the kind of person. If this person wants to sit in a cubicle all day and work with a repetitive task with nothing changing at a steady pace, I'm not going to put them in a place where there's a fire every day and they're having to put the fire out.
And everything's moving.
And having to talk with people and that stuff. And here's the thing, and we'll move into the other side of it, which is firing people, is if I've got somebody in the wrong place because of their personality, but because of the way God made them, I'm doing them a favor to release them because they're good at something. And the quicker that they can know that this is not it, the quicker they can go somewhere, because people actually pay you money to be your best self. The other thing is sometimes it's not a wrong fit. Sometimes it's a moral issue. Sometimes they're lying to you. Sometimes they're lazy. Yeah. And you know what? I'm giving that person a gift as well, because they need to find out that there are consequences for that. And if they can learn that in their first job or their second job, man, it can save them a lifetime. And they don't just keep getting away with bad behavior. The best book on that, by the way, is a book by Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings.
Yeah.
And he just talks about the fact that you gotta speak the truth with love with people. The way we did that, we did it several ways, but one of the ways that we did that is we would have annual evaluation, which everybody has. Now, this is what we did differently, though. We would not show the employee the results of the annual evaluation. Well, that's not fair. Well, here's what I found is when I had 40 supervisors turning in annual evaluations on 250 employees, everybody got A's. And the reason they got A's is they knew they had to sit down and tell the person what their grade was.
Didn't want to have the hard conversation.
And they didn't want to have the hard conversation. They were chickens is what they were. When I said just evaluate them A, B, or C, and let us know if you recommend no raise, cost of living only, modest increase, or substantial increase with reasons, all of a sudden I started getting A's and B's and C's, and I was getting more accurate data because of that. You say, well, that's not fair to the person. Yes, it's fair, because what I'm also asking those same supervisors to do is to meet with everybody they supervise once a month and have one sheet of paper and say, this is how you can make an A at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now, if it's at the end of the year, I know that my salary depends upon it. So anything you say to me negative, I'm going to bow up. But if in the year you're telling me how to make an A, how to make more money later on, now I'm listening all year long. And my metaphor is what kind of coach shows up after the season is over and tells somebody how to block?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. That's what an annual evaluation is. And no wonder people are mad about it. You didn't tell me.
Give me a hint that I'm not doing well.
my favorite story about that is a story called The Cats on the Roof. And it's about a guy who left town on vacation, and he left his cat with a next door neighbor, and he called back from vacation the first day, and he said, how's my cat? The guy said, well, man, your cat ran out into the road and got hit by a truck. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite pet. So he comes home from vacation. He said, hey, you kind of ruined my vacation by telling me my cat had been killed in the road. And he said, well, what was I supposed to do? And he said, well, you could have kind of prepared me for it. You could have, the first day I called, you could have said, well, your cat has gone up on the roof and we're trying to get him down. Don't worry about it, man. We got this thing. Take care of it. Enjoy your vacation. And then 2 or 3 days later when I called, you could have said, well, your cat has jumped from the roof to the tree, but we've called the fire department. Everything is going to be fine. And then the day before I come home, you could tell me my cat ran out in the road and got hit. And he goes, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I got you. So the next year he went on vacation and he called back home. He said, how's everything going? He says, well, your mom's on the roof.
That's a great your mom joke.
That's so funny. Well,
and what we've got to do is we've got to, on a monthly basis, say, hey, the cat's on the roof.
Yeah.
These are the 3 things that if you want to keep this job and if you want to be successful, and I want you to be successful, I want you. I'm your biggest fan. But you got to change these 3 things. And then come back the next time and say, okay, these 3 things didn't change. If we talk about these a third time, it's going to be a much different conversation. And the employee looks across and he says, is this a cats on the roof conversation? You say, yeah, it is.
It is. Well, they don't do that. See, that's what most people do. And that's what we had a problem at Baker Brothers was the write-up. When people would write them up, like, so you got in trouble. This isn't an evaluation and you're not doing well. This is you got wrote up and you're in trouble. You did something wrong. And the write-up would be soft. It would have no teeth or claws. And I go, at the end of the write-up, guys, you need to go, if you continue to do this or do this again, you'll lose your job. You will be terminated, and have that conversation. And one of the things that Pastor Steve talked about earlier was when he talked about, sometimes people, and somebody told me this, they said, Jimmie, if we hold on to them for 2 years and they cannot be successful with this company, we're taking 2 years away from them, their lives of being successful somewhere else. And it is true. And it sounds like a little defense mechanism to like why let somebody go. But the reality is if they're not doing well here and they're never going to do well here, every day they don't waste your time. Like that's what I was worried about. They're wasting my time. Well, you're also wasting theirs. And so an example in the trades is a guy who's a great, amazing new construction plumber. Or a commercial plumber. And he tries to come in where he does diagnostic at the house and has to talk to customers. See, when he's out in a building and he's running 500 feet of pipe, he doesn't have to worry about talking to a customer or interacting with people, besides, oh, get me that and let's get up here and get this job done. He could be like a superintendent in a couple of years at that company. That's but right. At the company we're at, because we do something different, it doesn't enhance his skill set. And so I think that's one of the things. I mean, sit down and talk to these guys and give them a chance. Ultimately, what Pastor Steve's saying with this evaluation is we're going to coach you. Mm-hmm. Our job is to coach you. Our job is to make you better. And we need to take something that is not like if you don't know how to block, we need to show you how to block. Something else, too, that we have to be careful of in this hiring thing is that we don't hire people that are different. The people we hire all the time, we do a good job at that. Like used to, I just hired call center people, dispatchers, and plumbers and apprentices. You get good at it. And that was it, dude. I could do that all day long. But the first accountant I hired, that didn't go so well. And that was the first high-level person I hired. I mean, so we need to know. You need to understand when you get into the situation of hiring someone. Like Pastor Steve didn't hire his replacement ever. Like, I mean, that never happened in the history of him being at the church. And he goes, hey, I have to hire someone that eventually I'm going to mentor and then I'm going to move on from. And that's one of those things I think that we just need to be aware of is that you're not good at it. You need to get other influence. Like that's what we did at Baker Brothers too. That was something different. I don't think we did exactly what Pastor Steve did, but we did go, hey, let's put 2 people in the room.
One technical, one more people oriented.
I love that.
And then let's let them, especially I think he's right. If you got the guy who's going to be the smartest guy in the room all the time, you don't want that guy talking to the other person and influencing them. But if you have 2 people that are like have that humility and they can sit down and go, hey, what'd you think? And the other guy could have barely said anything, but he noticed his body language. He noticed how he said this. Just little things that you could pick up on. You go, yeah, I really like the guy. I trust the guy. I think he's going to be a hard worker. The other guy could go, yeah, but when you asked this question, it was interesting that he answered it this way. So we started doing that. And I think, and we didn't do 2 interviews with the technicians because you just couldn't. Man, you're on a sales job as much as you're on an interview. Like I've got to get you signed up because the next guy, you got another one in about an hour, and they won't let you leave the room. You'll have to call the cops to extract you from there because they're going to, oh, no, we're going to sit down and talk and get you here. So we did one interviews with the tech, but the other people though, we did do phone interviews with them and vetted them on the phone a little bit. But I will say that everyone else, we did those 2 interview processes and it helped. It just
gives you insight,
narrowed the field of us making a mistake. So, and then different people in the interviews, like not always, maybe the same common person, but not always in the first and second, the same one. And it was funny. One of the ladies that worked for us, on her culture index, you could take her culture index and everyone she hired and you could put it to a lie exactly the same.
She hired herself.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
She liked herself, so she liked everybody.
I mean, it was
that was like her.
And she was great at her job, and all the people she hired were typically great. And she did a great job of hiring. What was funny, though, is that she got to a higher level. She had 2 managers under her. She taught them how to do it or thought she taught them how to do it. They started doing interviews. About a year and a half later, it's just mass chaos. I mean, we're like... And I went back, and that's something else too we do. We start having problems in an organization, and we don't go, let's go back to when this started, which was when we hired them.
Yeah, what changed?
And I go, all these people were hired in the last year and a half because we were having problems with the people. And I go, well, who was doing that? I go, Misty, are you still hiring people? And she was like, well, no, I passed it on to the call center manager and dispatch manager. And I go, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So here's what we're going to do. From here on out, you'll let them go ahead and do it, but you're going to do the second interview. You're going to be in the second interview, period, no matter what. First interview, she got out of the gate. They're all excited about this lady. Hey, she's coming in. She goes to the interview. She said that first interview would have lasted about 15 minutes, and there's no way I'd have got a second interview with them. And I said, see, this has been happening for a year and a half now, and this is the source of all your angst, all your problems. Is you change the way you hired.
And didn't train them how to do it so that they could take...
Well, she thought she did, but they didn't.
And here's the thing. There may be somebody who's great at the call center, the head of the call center, but that doesn't mean they're good at hiring people. That's right. And then if you give them that extra job of hiring people, there's some people, even if you train them, they're not going to be good at something. And you got to pay attention to those results. I will go back and say on the firing thing, there's a couple of problems. One is we live in the myth that we're not going to fire this person because we're being merciful. The only person we're being merciful to is ourselves because we know they need to be fired and we don't do it. The other thing I would say is as a supervisor who hesitates in firing people, sometimes, and this is a confession, sometimes it's because we are stretched so thin, we don't have the emotional margin. I would have an employee that I knew needed to be fired, but I had to write a sermon that week. And I didn't have the emotional energy to do my job, my day job, and because it's a 2 or 3 day thing, a back and forth, and what are we going to give them in severance, and do we walk them out with a cardboard box, or we let them finish the week, or, do we let them find another? There's so much involved in it emotionally, and so we've got to take care of ourselves so that we have the emotional margin to make the hard calls, not only in firing but in our business overall.
I think one thing I want to say is that talking about the hard conversation, and that may be one of the reasons. Another reason that I've found is that people are worried about being liked versus respected and trusted as a leader.
Exactly.
And I think it's what you said is a lot of times is if I fire this person, how much more work is it for me for a little bit of time? But if we let them stay, how much work is it for me over a long period of time? And so I think it's...
And the illusion that the job is actually being done.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is people that are good at having hard conversations, they take the emotions out of it and they weigh the facts.
I think the thing that you need to do it's like anything else, you have to standardize. Like we were talking about reading. You have to do this. You have to standardize a system and go, we are going to top grade everybody 2 times a year. We're going to bring everybody in the room, and we'd bring all of our leadership team in the room. And I go, I want you guys to list everybody that you have that is directly reports to you. I want you to put, are they an A player, a B player, or a C player? And I think I got this from Pastor Steve as well. He goes, an A player quits, and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do?
You start in the toilet.
Yeah, you
I
go
call
cry.
it the toilet.
You start crying immediately. I go, the B player quits. You're like, I hate that, but I can go find another one of those, right? A C player quits, and you go, oh, thank God, because you were driving me crazy. I was going to fire you. And so what we have to do in the top grading is to go, okay, so 2 axes as well. It's not all on productivity. Like a lot of people just love to grade they're an A player because they do the most. Well, the other thing is company culture. There's the two axes to grade on.
Yeah.
And so if you're really high in productivity, but you're low in culture, you could be a B or a C. That doesn't mean you're an A just because you're an A on one chart. So when you
got to measure both.
do
no
that
question.
and you tell your company to do that and do this top grading, what happens is you identify everybody. And then when you see the A players, so I think this is what they cut the C's. Everybody's like, oh yeah, you cut the C. Yeah, we get it. What they don't do is go to the A player and go, okay, how much would you pay for this person to stay in your organization if they got another job?
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
How much would you pay them? Are you paying them enough? Are they being appreciated enough? Are you doing what you need to do to keep them here, right? And if you're not, you're making a big mistake. The C player, it's like we usually did like a 30 to 60 day ask. I need you to get them to a B player in 30 to 60 days or get out of the organization.
Coach them up or coach them out.
Yeah, we use that language a lot. And what we found is that most people, like we just talked about, the coaching up's too hard. So I'm just going to say they're a B and they're not a C. We get some of that where it's like, well, it's easier for me just to move them up the chart. And instead of having to be responsible for cutting them.
But that's why we started doing the blind evaluation where the employee didn't see it, because it took a little bit of the pain out to rate them. And then our little rule was you can't rate somebody a C 2 years in a row.
Oh, that's great.
That's
the missing piece right there, because if they're C now and 6 months from now they're still a C, either you can't coach, right?
And it doesn't have to be a year. It could be 6 months. Yeah. But you say, I got to rank everybody. And you can't rank them as a C twice.
Yeah.
If they're a C, you've got to. Then we've got to talk. We've got to release them to their destiny.
I think what they say in the home service world, we're going to make them a customer.
I love that.
Well, what I'm going to tell you though, like what Jeff just said, that was interesting. Is just a thought I had is, okay, so if that person is grading them a B because they don't want to go through the effort of coaching them. Are they a C? Like, are they?
Yeah. Bingo. Because part of their job is to supervise. And the truth is, and this is something I'm passionate about. A lot of times we have somebody that's a great worker and we move them into leadership. And for the very first time, they're supervising. There's a skill set to supervising. And we ought to have a set training for anybody who moves to supervise somebody. Instead of moving them there, and then all they're doing stuff like rating a C player, B, and everything, and we're upset about it. We never trained them how to coach somebody up.
Great point.
And we need to have, and the great thing with videos today and everything, you could have books, and if they're not readers, you could have short videos, and you say, okay, when you be a supervisor in the first year, in the first month, I want you to read this little short book, 1 Minute Manager. In the second month, I want you to watch these 2 videos, and then discuss the book, discuss the videos afterwards. Whoever is their supervisor or a separate, if you're a larger company, a separate person ought to be in charge of training supervisor. And then at least once a quarter, you ought to pull anybody in who supervises somebody else, and you ought to have ongoing training for supervisor. There's a special set of skills need for supervision. Book I'd recommend, by the way, on supervising is one by Tulgan. It's called It's Okay to Be the Boss. And it talks to guys who want to be liked, how not to be liked.
Oh, that's great. I'm getting that one today.
Well, that's what happens is everybody who is a technician that gets moved to manager, they don't want to be one of those guys. Like, because it's us versus them most of the time. But
went to the dark side.
Yeah, he did this. But what's funny is what Pat's exactly right. We onboard a new employee. We have a whole onboarding system for new employee for 10 days. Like, you're going to train you on this. We're going to show you how to do this. We're going to take you through these steps of how to work at this company. But then we take somebody who we move up into a new position
it's a
and we do
totally
zero training with them and go, oh, here's the keys to your new desk and here's where you sit. And
here's
make them produce.
Yeah, make them produce.
Make more money for us. Let's go do that. How about we sit down and go, hey, let me start to mentor you. And I know some of you guys out there have small businesses and you're moving a guy up. Don't throw him the keys to the office and go, hey, here you go, guy. Here's where you sit. You've got to set him down. You have to figure out a process to do it. And man, there's some AI tools out there right now. We had we had a similar thing that we had this management team that they really didn't have a training for. It was almost like, hey, you ride with me for a long time, and they didn't have any specific time limit. It was just like, hey, let me show you how to do this job, right? And we actually used this AI product, and what it did is it actually created curriculum, videos, study guides in 20 minutes. Like the guy goes, he wrote out a plan, and we were talking about, hey, what do you need to know to do this job well? And so he wrote out a brilliant plan for it. Yeah, here's the outline of what the things that we need to know how to do and that are very important. And I said, great. And then I said, well, what we'll do is we'll grab this one lady. She used to be a teacher, and then we'll grab this other guy who's, he worked for professors, really smart. We're going to put them together. And then we'll create a curriculum, which probably would have taken at least 2 weeks to a month, right?
At least
20 minutes.
Wow.
20 minutes. And that's just the power of some of the things that we can do. And I would really highly recommend, one, to pay for the Chat GPT, pay for the extra, because it does make a big difference. It's a huge difference on the AI front of whatever it is you're using, Claude or anything else. But also, man, use those resources, because, man, sometimes what takes us, like hours and hours or days to do would just happen in minutes. And you can keep chatting. Like us old guys, we just want the answer. Like we're like Google, hey, what is this? And it gives us the answer, like, okay, we're done. Ask it again, ask it again, ask it again. We talked about job descriptions before. And we were talking about, so let's say back in the day, Jeff and I go, hey, let's get a job description for this new thing that we're going to do. Okay, great. Well, in our part-time of the regular job we have, we're going to come up with a job description. It will take us a week to even, hopefully, either one of us have taken any notes at all. Then we get together and we go, okay, let's correlate what we have. That takes another week. So the best case scenario could have been a 2-week process.
I just did this, by the way, and I used ChatGPT. I said, give me a job description for this title at a home service company. It was the best job description we have in the company. And so it's that kind of thing.
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. And it's like, hey, all this back and forth I'm watching on email, I said, hey, I just put this into ChatGPT. Here's the job description.
And you can write, and you can dumb it down. You can go, because it'll write it almost, or you can make it sort. Hey, write it at Ivy League level. Hey, write it at a 10-year-old level, whatever.
Ninth grader.
Yeah, ninth grader. Hey, let's
plumber level.
Let's do it. Let's do it at
ninth grader.
Yeah, let's do it at
Sorry,
like
plumbers,
only.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he's just messing around. We're not that stupid, guys. Like but go. Hey, just give me a paragraph. Give me a page. Give me 2 pages. Like, you can do this. And what's cool about it is if you keep refining it, and it'll ask you when you do the one you pay for, it'll go, well, hey, do you want to see it like this? Do you want to see it like that? Hey, would you like me to get more detail about these certain things? And it's just incredible. So before AI, causes Armageddon and takes over the entire planet and decides that, us humans, like, we definitely leverage it, because there's so many things out there that it does. I mean, it can, you want to get like a unique selling proposition that you're trying to, we're all trying to figure out and be creative and go, hey, what would be something that's kind of sticky that would be really cool for us to put in a commercial? Dude, ask it. It's probably the smartest person and most creative person and go, hey, here's what tell a big story. Like, write a page of what you want that job to be or what you want that unique selling proposition to be. And another, by the way, just on a side note of marketing, Pastor Steve one time he used to these lunches where he'd go over books and things. And I was always kind of a marketing nerd and loved that stuff. But one of the things he did that was the greatest one I remember, and I read it after he gave us a synopsis, was the book Sticky, or was it Make It Sticky?
Yeah.
Make It Sticky. I think, I can't remember what the
Yes, it's by the Heath brothers.
Yes.
So look up Dan and Chip Heath, and it will Made to Stick.
Made to Stick is what it was. That's what it was. And
I guess it wasn't that sticky.
Yeah, I guess bad title for it.
Because I remember
there you go.
from 15 or 20 years ago.
Wow.
But it was great because it helped with that, because that's what we all need is we need to make, even if we're just talking to our group, we need to add something into it that sticks in their head, because, that's what happens. You read a book, you want that paragraph that stuck. That's what you're looking for. You're reading this whole book to probably get 3 pages of information that you're going to go, I can change my business. And so I think that's something else too, is that Made to Stick book. What's great about it is you can do it in advertising, which was what it was about. Yes. But you can do it in the way you interact with people and your employees to get them to remember things, because we just go, well, I keep talking about that and they don't remember. And I go, weird. Maybe they're not audio learners. Did you ever think about that? Maybe the guys that are technicians in the field,
They're visual
learners. They're like, I show you how to do it, then I let you do it, and then I watch you do it.
And then we talk about it.
Yes. But we don't just talk. That's a silly way to do it. So
another great book on marketing is called "This Is Marketing" by Seth Godin, and it's a short read, real good read. But back to where we were on the AI, I think the key on training supervisors is to have a system, streamline it, so you're not there. There's plenty of. The problem is not that we don't have enough material out there. The problem is that we do need to streamline it. We do. I love what you're talking about, saying AI, I want this much, not everything, but I want this much. What are the essentials? And then have that system, and then make sure that we're running our systems, because a lot of times we create these systems and we're feeling good about ourselves, and then we delegate it to somebody else, and we look up 5 years from now and they just decided it was too much trouble and they stopped doing it. We solved a problem and they unsolved it. And we don't know that they've unsolved it.
That's a small business phenomenon. That's a small business phenomenon. It's like what happens is we do something and we create a system, and it is amazing. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is like sliced bread. This is solving all our problems. And then 2 months later, we will stop doing it almost every single time. So I always tell everybody, go, hey,
True.
When you do something and you think, well, man, we all want to win, and you're winning and it's great, follow back up on that system in 2 months and make
when
sure.
They win sometimes. They get relaxed and they forget about the things that's causing them to win.
Yeah.
And I think it's, we spend a lot of time about hiring and firing. My question would be, when we move from, okay, they're hired, and now we're in the developmental phase of what's happening here. Some people you hire and but they might have got over on us. Maybe they're not who we thought they were. And so you figure that out in the developmental phase. When did you know, and what common themes did you observe from high performers that you could say, okay, they're ready for the next level of development?
Yeah, Jim Collins said something. He talks about 5 levels of leaders, and I don't know which one of his books, if it was great.
Good to great.
Good to great, or great by choice, or How the Mighty Fall, or whatever. But somewhere in there, he talked about 5 levels of leader, and he talked about that top level. And that top level is somebody who was ambitious, but and this is so key, they're ambitious about the right things. In other words, they're ambitious about the cause. They're ambitious about the company. They're ambitious about the team, not ambitious for themselves. And you can kind of tell if somebody is doing all this for themselves, and they're always trying to figure out how they can work less and get more money and that type of thing. So first of all, he says they're ambitious. And then the second thing he says, he uses the metaphor of a window and a mirror. He says when things go right, they look out the window and they mention other people on the team who made it possible. They don't feel like they have to. And then when something goes wrong, they look in the mirror and say, how am I responsible for that? And that's his definition, by the way, of humility, the window and the mirror. And if you find somebody who is not always blaming the circumstances or blaming other people on the team for their failure, they say, hey, I screwed that up. I'll do better next time. Here's the things I'm going to change. Or they say, hey, man, you did a great job. Hey, listen, our team did a great job. And some of the people I respect the most, who after they win a championship and everything else, they immediately shift that. That's a great leader. I want to hire that guy. One of them just got drafted #1 last night, in the NFL draft.
Yes, sir.
That was his deal all the time. He's always pointing to the team. He's always pointing to his family. And so I want somebody who's got grit, who pushes through the dip, through the hard time, but somebody who's humble in the way that they give other people credit and they accept blame. Because all of us screw up from time to time. And when we own it, people on your team don't think less of you. They think more of you when you own your mistakes.
I have a delayed criticism thing where if somebody criticizes me, like, Jeff, like I would lash out, and then I call Jeff.
That's the first response. Yeah.
Then I call Jeff, like literally get in the car, goes, hey, and I want y'all to think about this because I know we all don't like criticism. But then I go, hey, Jeff only wants me to be better. Like he only wants us to be the best. And you know what? And I would literally think about it as I drove in the car, as I told him probably some terrible things as I walked out. I'm good at, the whole talking smack deal. So that just immediately I can say something to Jeff that's terrible. And then I walk out and I start driving and go, man, Jeff would never do that. Man, I need to think about this. Yes, this, check the box. Yeah, I need to do that. I need to improve in that. And then I would call Jeff back or Bubba or whoever I did this to and said, hey, I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, I had a delayed reaction to that, but it was
what a gift to have somebody who cares enough about you. They're willing to go through personal pain to help you get better.
Yeah. Well, and that's something about Jeff. You never had to worry if he was going to speak up or say anything. And I mean, because he wanted things to be that's what our whole team was that way. It was really funny. Everybody in our meetings were like, man, you guys are laughing and carrying on. Like, man, y'all even get anything done? This is nuts. And then the next thing that happens is then all of a sudden show up and we're not doing well and see what happens. We don't do well. Then it's like, not fun to be in that meeting at all, because I go, this is why we always have to win, guys, because if we don't, this is how it looks, because we're all going, hey, man, why are you not getting this done? And hey, we got to do this, which there was honesty there, of what we did. So that was what was important.
Well, I think the thing is that if you know the context with which I'm coming from, you know
your heart.
You know my heart. You know that this is the reason I'm saying what I'm saying.
Well, also something too, we were talking about, back to what we were talking about when you put these people in new positions, what they need to look like to succeed. One of the other things that's great about Culture Index, and not everyone that does it, they don't know, is that Culture Index, when you test again, I put you in a new position, I test you 6 months later, and then all of a sudden I see how you're reacting, responding to your new job. And sometimes it's just a tweak of training. It's like you're very autonomous. Well, they gave you a list of 10 things to do. And so you're kind of struggling with that. And then I just go, hey, it doesn't matter how you do this. Just make sure these things happen in the big sense. You have autonomy to do whatever you want and you allow that. Then all of a sudden that changes. It's sometimes people thinking they have to be not too task oriented, not enough people oriented. Conversation, sometimes wrong position all the way around.
Well, and if they change supervisors, sometimes I see, and those of you who don't know Culture Index won't know completely what I'm saying here, but the red dot gets pulled back and I don't feel as autonomous as I did before. And it's because I'm being micromanaged. Sometimes that second chart, which is how do you feel about your job today is what it is, tells more about your supervisor than it tells about you, or it tells more about the new job description and the constraints that you didn't mean to put on a person, but that new job doesn't fit them. You really have to spend as much time paying attention to interviewing somebody who's changing positions in your company as you do hiring a brand new person, because there's got to be a match.
Yep.
And if there's not a match, and very frankly, my job as a supervisor is to tweak the people I supervise, their job description every year so they get more and more in their unique ability. Yep. And I define unique ability. There's things that you're bad at, things that you're only good at, things that you're great at, and things that are your unique ability. Things that you're bad at, most of us have stopped doing those out of pure embarrassment. You'll notice I'll not break into song during this interview.
You sure? No,
it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. The things that I'm good at are things that I'm average, but nobody would pay me money to do. Now, here's the hard part. There's things that I'm great at, but to do them takes so much energy that if I do them enough, I'll burn out. But if my job description can get tweaked to where I'm spending most of my time in my unique ability, I actually get more things done faster and better because it's my second nature. It's who God made me to be, and it energizes me. And my job as a supervisor, well, first of all, my job is to make sure that I'm managing my own life and that I'm asking my boss if I can change my job description a little bit more to spend more time, because it's going to be better for the company if I'm in my unique ability. But if I'm supervising people, it's also my job to be getting feedback from them, from Culture Index, from their statements, from looking at the results and saying, okay, my job is not finished when I put somebody in the right seat. I've got to maybe upholster that seat. I've got to maybe put wheels on that seat. I've got to maybe put them in a different office in that same chair. It's an ongoing thing to help people. The company wins, they win, I win because it's less supervision for me.
And I think what you said about, the energy piece, if I'm leaving every day at a deficit, I'm probably not going to be there long, right? And so we're not going to get the best out of that relationship anyway. And so every day I've got to think about the things that give me energy or are part of my unique ability, or the things that are draining me that I might be good at, but they still drain me.
Well, and here's the other hack on that is that you figure out what those things that are draining you, because they're at a lower level. There's something you're only good or only great at. And those are the things that you either create a system around or you delegate to somebody else.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't want it back in your office, you got to delegate it to someone for whom it is their unique ability.
And that's it right there. Don't just delegate it to anybody.
Yeah, that was what I think one of the things that Pastor Steve, when he first talked to us about that he talked about that made me go, okay, because he gave real world description story of that. And it's like, okay, so I know I'm good at this, but I hate going down the line item of the P&L of every single thing and getting in there. I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do. Am I good at it? Yeah.
You knew it needed to be done.
Yeah. So you go get someone who's really good at it. And like they say, love doing that, because, he was talking earlier about the person that just sits in the cube, does the same job every day. If you want it, that'd be like a form of prison for me. That might be what hell looks like.
That is prison.
That might be what hell looks like to us. I don't know what all of a sudden you go, I'm in a cubicle, go, oops, I didn't make the cut, but you go in there and you go, but there are people that love to hit the red button every day, and they just want to go, and they can go to the factory and just hit that red button and have the best day ever. And if you want to mess them up, make it a blue button one day and they don't know what to do. And then it's like, oh my God, what did you do to me? For us, but you need to understand that everybody has these different abilities and the unique abilities, and that when you find them and you see them and you go, man, these guys are having a good day every day at work.
Somebody once asked me the question, how do you know what your unique ability is? Number one is results. If you're really good at what you do, you're going to get results. The second is feedback from people who know you well, that you trust. And again, what a gift to have somebody in your life who'll tell you the truth about what's going on. And then the other is that it energizes you. It can't just be that it energizes you. There's this program called American Idol where people think that they're rock stars and they come in. They are energized by the ideal of singing, but they can't sing. So it's got to be results and proper feedback from the panel of three.
Well, I like when they go, so who told you you're good at this? Like that's your key that you weren't good at it. When they go, so who told you? Was your mom the one that said, hey, you can sing well? Or who was it that was trying not to hurt your feelings? But
one of the things
cruel to put them on for ratings, but go ahead.
One of the things I want to ask you about your unique ability. Did it change much from the bait house with 57 people to the masses of 12,000?
I think you can get better at your unique ability because you get hacks and you get skills, and everything. But no, it's the same way. I used to call it my spiritual gift, and then Dan Sullivan gave me the language of unique ability. But mine is strategic leadership. And so I have the ability to see solutions. When I come into a situation and there's a problem, there's a constraint either in a business or in a church or a person's life, to say, okay, here's 3 things that you might do to change it, and then to have enough wisdom to let the person choose which one of those options, because he knows things that I don't know. And so it's a collaborative experience. So that's my primary unique ability. And when I can come into a company or come into a church or even executive coach a guy and say, hey, tell me what's going on in your life. What's really going well? What's not? And they tell me what's not. And I get enough details. I can say, have you tried this? Have you read this book? Have you spent time with this person? And provide solutions. There are people who see dead, apparently, according to the movie, they see dead people. I see solutions. As my wife says, I am strategic even when nobody wants me to be.
I see dead people. Is that how they do it?
Are you talking about unsolicited advice maybe? But like, hey, I can solve that problem for you as you're talking, as they're talking?
I have to bite my tongue because, and I do want people to invite me into that, but that's who God made me to be, and that's when I'm at my best. Now, interestingly enough, communication is something I'm great at, but it's the thing I have to work the hardest at. So I had to produce a sermon to all these people. It's like taking a final exam or writing a term paper on a weekly basis and having 15,000 people judge it. If it's funny enough, if it's profound enough, if it's new material. And so I did it with excellence because I knew how important it was, but it cost me so much emotionally and physically that when I was able to transition out of having to produce that every week to the same people for 40 years, boy, I'm having the best life I've ever had. Wow. I don't believe in retirement. You stop using your brain, it'll stop working. You stop using your body, it'll stop working. I believe that if anybody has a goal toward the later part of their life where they manage their money in such a way that they really are okay financially is they now have the freedom to do exactly what God created them to do. And to me, that's not heaven, but it's real close to heaven that you get to spend 100% of your time in your unique ability. Now, part of the curse was that there'd be weeds in the garden, okay? And so that's always going to be true. And there'll be weeds. It's just that the garden that I'm working in right now has less weeds.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'll tell you, as a person that sat in the pews, you couldn't tell that was draining you.
Well, it was too important, and I put the time in.
Yeah.
But nothing cost me more than that.
Interesting.
The gray hair that I have today is because of
the term paper
thousands of sermons that I had to preach. And I was great at it, but it wasn't my unique ability.
Would it be cheating if he chat GPT'd his sermons now?
You could do it now, I guess.
Well, see, I could go back now, and it wouldn't be so hard.
Do you feed all your sermons into ChatGPT so somebody could use them? You know?
Well, I asked the other day where all my sermons were, and they said, well, we've got it stored in a warehouse in Mesquite. So I went to Mesquite the other day, and I opened up one of them, and there were all the DVDs and my original notes, and there were even cassettes in there from the 80s.
Wow.
And so we did a good job of hanging on to them. But I said, I don't want them to be here in this warehouse. I said, would you deliver them to my house? I've got a room that I've made in the attic that's air conditioning and everything else. I can put them in there with other things I'm storing. And so I thought they'd bring like 5 or 6 of these big tubs. They brought 17 tubs.
Oh, my gosh.
Of those. And so those are now in my house. And we're going to start the process of going digital with them, which is way beyond my pay grade, and I don't understand anything about that. But we're going to put them.
That's amazing, though.
That's the short answer to your question.
That's what Tyner actually did that with his business coach while he was in college. He took 10 of his recordings and took a book that he had written, a small book, like 70-page paper book, and he basically put a bot on it, and it literally recreated him. And he could you could ask it anything. Like, Nikki Nemeroff, you could ask it anything. And Nikki's working on some stuff where he does these unique gift statements that I was just talking to a guy today about it. And he has this app that we're going to come out with that basically you can talk to someone about Pastor Steve, and Jeff could put in input, and it would give you a unique gift statement. And it is it's emotional. It is an emotional thing. If you read one, you're like, oh my gosh, man, that was so great. So
many great tools out there right now.
Yeah. We better get wrapped up.
Yeah, so we're out of time. It went by so fast. But one of the things I wanted to say is, sitting here and having a conversation with you, and you may not know this, about all the influence that you've had on my life as a leader when we didn't have a direct mentor-mentee relationship, but you did with Bubba, you did with Jimmie, and I was, a benefit of that. So thank you for all your leadership over the last 40-some years and the direct and indirect people that are in your little tree of wisdom here. And so I thank you for that. And
too kind.
Yes,
Thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the most impactful trainings for me was the 360-degree leadership, which we didn't get into.
Well, we'll do that next time. We'll get Pastor Steve on again and see if he wants to, and we'll have him on here and go through that, because that's how he and Gus met. Pastor Steve came to Baker Brothers and did that for us, and I said, Gus, I know you don't go to our church, but you've got to get Pastor Steve to come do this for you, because he's probably one of the best leadership people I know. Our thing we say behind your back is like, hey, if Pastor Steve would have been like, just a CEO, he'd have been like a Fortune 500 CEO. I mean, he built a great church and has a great legacy. But
he lived out the kingdom method. Yeah. And listen, we appreciate that. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, we'll see you later.
All right, bye.
God bless.